And
Wow.
there's the button that I'm pressing, which means that we are now live on the interwebs. It's Saturday, the 30th of April, 2022, just in case this is a time capsule that is discovered by aliens in the future. And it's time for the Virtual Pipe Club weekly meeting. I'm your host, founder David Dorian Ross, and these are the incredible members of the Virtual Pipe Club. Say hello, incredible members.
Hey,
Howdy,
everybody.
Howdy, everybody.
Hey, everybody.
We have a grand whopping 2 people already watching us over there on the internet. 3 now. I don't know if I've told you. I do a morning show on the internet here, and I always say that when I look at my dashboard and I see how many people are watching, the icon to let me know that there are viewers is a single eyeball. And whenever there's an odd number next to it, it just freaks me out a little bit. It's like, okay, so I don't know how they're dispersed. You know, it's like, do we have 3 people with 1 eye and 4 people with 2? And I don't know how that works. Anyway, thank you for watching. Kirk from Florida says happy to be here. Glad you are. Tell a friend that the Virtual Pipe Club is meeting right now, because today is kind of a different kind of day. We're going to do a couple of special things today, which I'll tell you about in just a moment. But first, I want to make a couple of quick announcements. So, just so that I'm not all alone here. See, I need a little help from my friend.
Not back up.
Is that good? So, first of all, I want to thank Tim and Miguel and everybody else who helped me out last week when I was gone. And I have to say that, and I haven't really announced this to anybody yet, but I'm going to announce it right now. I will be gone next week as well. I have to fly down to California, right? You know, we're moving to Seattle, and I have to fly back down to California because my older dog is ready to go to doggy heaven. And so I'm flying down so that I can be the one to tell the vet to push the needle, and then I can sit with him. And so I'll be gone for that weekend, but I'll be back the weekend after, and the show will go on. We may not have a meeting next week because I'm not sure who of the other moderators are also in some way out of town. So we'll talk about that through the week here. We'll make announcements. That's the first announcement I wanted to make. The second announcement is a big thank you to those guys who kept the show going last week. So Tim and Miguel's not here today. And behind the scenes, always David Martinez, although he loves soccer much more than he loves us. I don't know why that is, but apparently that's true.
Queso dip would be really good on these.
Randall, if you're going to have nachos, you have to have enough for all of us. You know the rule. Anyway, Tim, were you about to jump in there? I didn't want to.
Oh, no, I was just, I wasn't. But I just, I wanted to tell you, how sorry I am about, having to go through that process with your dog. It's always so sad. I went through that just recently, about 3 weeks ago, with my cat of nearly 18 years. And a little bit of a shout out to the vets, in that time of, one of the most awful times of owning a pet. I mean, they were truly fantastic, compassionate, kind, just truly amazing. So the people that do this work, veterinary work, can't say enough about people who care for animals in general, can't say enough about the good that is out there.
Yeah, I totally agree. Our poor Oz has already been through cancer treatment. And, when we went in, they said that there's a 50-50 chance he won't come out of this treatment. But they did such a fantastic job. So we've had another 2 years with him. And that's a blessing. So, and I know that there's a lot of guys, because I've talked to you and I've seen your posts or whatever, that you also have dogs and cats and other pets, and so I feel the support, and so that's something I really thank you for. So what are we going to do today? It is a special day because I have something that we haven't really done before, and also those of you who are watching over there on Facebook and YouTube, I really want to invite you to get involved in today's conversation. We've just passed our 2-year anniversary at the Virtual Pipe Club, and like time has just gone by like that, and we've grown. I see that Facebook has reposted the first meeting we had. There were 3 of us, and now there's nearly 6,000 members, and ad hoc members around the world. It's just awesome.
And for 2 years in a row, we were the #1 pipe club.
And that's just mind-boggling. Like, we didn't really put ourselves out there to compete with anything. So that's all from you guys and other people who've watched the show, writing into to the contest and voting for us. So, again, really thank you for that. I have had this wonderful experience of getting to know, many of you, and every week getting to know, somebody new and somebody, with a different story. But I don't think we've really dwelt on that inside one of our meetings, like getting to know each other. And so today, when we're going to expand out our ritual a little bit as we talk about what we're smoking and what we're smoking it in. I'd also like to find out a little bit about you. Obviously, you don't have to share, your personal life story or whatever, but also, like, what are your hobbies? Do you have a family? What else do you do on the side? Do you have a day job? Those kinds of like who are you and who are the people that make up our club? And I want to celebrate all these people who make up our club. So, so those of you watching on Facebook and YouTube, I'm going to try to bring you in as well. Please dump some comments in the comment section and I'll share them out with everybody else. But I'm going to start with Tim.
Oh,
Tim's the
okay.
man, and he's first in line.
Okay, so this is a little bit something more personal about yourself and who you are.
Yes, please.
All
And
right,
as well as what we usually do, which is what you're smoking of the day.
Okay, well, let me start with me. I'm from a small town in Pennsylvania, and I'm a graduate of Pennsylvania State University, and now I live in Massachusetts. Been here for about the past 30 years. I'm a clinical psychologist, and I do a couple things. I work in a school in the Department of Special Education, and what I really like about this job is that basically I do psychological evaluations for kids that are suspected of having some type of a learning disability, and that could be anything from a learning disability in a subject area or a skill, or it could be autism, or it could be ADHD, or it could be something emotional, whatever that is. But we have a team and we evaluate the student, and from that point we usually give them a bunch of services to help them through school. So the thing that I really like about my role at the school is that we do these things and kids wind up getting a lot of help and services. So that is like really rewarding to me. And then in addition to that, I have a private practice, through the week that I see people just for therapy throughout the week. So, I like what I do. I've been in this profession for quite a long time. It's pretty much all I've ever done. So it's been pretty rewarding. And aside from that, I've had, a lot of hobbies over the years. I mean, like lately, I've been very interested in poker. I enjoy playing. I enjoy, watching YouTube videos on it about people's personal blogs and their journey through trying to become a poker player. And I like a lot of different things. I like to cook. I enjoy cooking shows. I like scotch. I like whiskeys. I like drag racing on YouTube. I enjoy watching drag racing because lately I've been watching some videos of, the cameras inside the car. These are cars that go like 200 miles an hour in 4 seconds. There's something just about it that I like the power. But that's pretty much me. And what I'm smoking today, I'm smoking this Radice Bulldog, which is just a gift that was given to me from my wife many years ago. Really, my wife is really good at picking out pipes. She's just tremendous. I love this one because I love the lines on it. It just it flows so smoothly. And in it, I'm smoking classic Hal of the Wind. And after that, I'm going to go to this Peterson Spigot 68, number 68, with the horn stem that I found on smoking pipes a number of years ago. And luckily, I nabbed it when I did because it was gone. Did a few with the horn, and that was it. And in that, I'm going to smoke another classic 965. So that's me, and I'm going to turn it over to
Tim. Before you turn it over, I want to ask you about drag racing.
Yes.
So because the little bit I got a chance to know about you, that's sort of so different from the vibe that you're very calm and you're very, you're very well spoken and soft spoken. So I would not have thought that my Christmas gift to you this year is going to be a NASCAR T-shirt. So tell me a little bit more about that. Like, how did you get into that?
When I was younger, I was really into cars and race cars. I used to build model cars, and I remember, going to the drag race. Drag racing is not NASCAR. Drag racing is like a quarter mile where the two cars are there and the little Christmas tree, the lights going on, and the cars take off when the light goes in. It's basically a straight race to the end of the finish line. And there's something just about the power of the cars. I mean, I don't know a lot about the drivers and stuff like that, but the one particular class I like is called Pro Stock. I just think the cars are so cool looking. And what I like about drag, there's more and more women involved in drag racing, which is just so cool. And I don't think it's a gender thing because they compete against the men. And these women, they get in these cars and they go 200 miles an hour in 4 seconds. And there's something about the power of these cars. Like before they pull up to the line, they do this burnout to warm up the tires, and it's just so loud, and there's smoke all over the place. And the cars are so technical, they're very hard to drive. There's all these different things you have to do, all of the things that go into having a successful run. It seems like it's coming down to such minute little tolerances of, half a split second here, a split second, it's so technical. And I admired the mechanics because in between runs, they're basically rebuilding engines in the pits and taking the car apart and putting it back together. It's like, oh my God, these people have such skill and knowledge in this field to take this car, which is, it costs $100,000 to put an engine in it, to take this, $500,000 race car and blast it down, a quarter-mile dragway, in 4 seconds. It's just amazing to me that this is a sport that's been around forever. So I don't know. I just like it. I like all the technology and the power. And I do really enjoy that women are active participants in this sport. It's so cool.
That's really awesome. Thank you, Tim. See, this is what I'm talking about. This is a great way I never would have known this about Tim. So wonderful. All right. Who are you going to pass it on to there?
Okay, well, I think I'm going to pass it on to Alvin. I'd like to hear what's going on with Alvin. I'd like to hear a little more about your world down in Texas. And take it away, Alvin.
Thank you, Tim. And well, first of all, let's do what I'm smoking, and it'll lead into my short story, a little background on myself. I'm smoking a Savinelli Tiger. Smooth, really pretty grain on this billiard, and it probably wouldn't have been a pipe I would have bought, but I retired yesterday from the Texas Historical Commission, 48 years, and that was one of my gifts. So I'm smoking it in honor of my employer, and so I've worked most of my life for the agency that oversees Texas historic sites. And, it's been my dream job, and that's why I'm now just retiring at 70. So I love it so much. But, hey, there's a time for everything. And I had to turn it over to the youth movement. My stamina's not what it used to be.
Alvin, do you get to travel around to some of these historical sites?
Every one of them.
Do you have a favorite?
Actually, they're across Texas. They're all the way from the Alamo to San Jacinto Battleground we have sites at every corner El Paso to the other end of the state.
Do you have a favorite?
And it's a pretty cool job. And I even sometimes didn't take the company car. I would take my motorcycle, which is also another hobby I have. I organized a rider group in 2005 and called the Republic of Texas Riders. And I organized rides for that group, and we go on rides, 2 or 3 rides, major rides a year. And so that's one of the other things. My wife doesn't ride, so one of the promises I've made to her is that I've been all over the country on my bike with my group. So I'm going to take her on some of the bike trips in the truck, so she can get to see some of the wonderful sights I've seen.
That's awesome.
And then I'm a part-time guitarist, and I don't play for the public. I just play for myself, so I don't have to play well. That's one of the things I like. And of course, I'm a pipe enthusiast. You know that already. And I've got 4 daughters, 4 great-grandsons, and 5 grandchildren, and it's growing still. So sometimes those obligations get in the way of my very precious moments with you. But that's a little about me. And again, I'll just say, I actually am I try to be a humble Texan. Those are hard to find. But, it's just been I'm a 6th generation Texan. My ancestors settled Texas. So that's why I'm working with the agency that preserves all the Texas historic sites. It meant so much to me. And again, it's a new path for me and a new adventure. And of course, my pipe hobby will be a big part of that. And
So,
again, I really appreciate that.
Alvin, I
Yes.
wanted to ask you, in all those historical sites, if you had a favorite, one that is, one that you always talk about, one that you want to go back and visit again, one that you'd recommend that we go visit?
The San Jacinto Monument, now it's in the ship channel of Houston, so it's kind of congested to get to. But that monument is actually higher than the Washington Monument. Now, it wasn't supposed to be. There's a federal law that says no monument can be higher than the Washington Monument. However, Texas, when they built it, put a foundation under it, which they technically didn't think classified as part of the monument. So it's higher. But that's a pretty impressive monument. And then, of course, I ended my last day yesterday at a meeting of our commissioners at the Alamo, which I thought was real fitting. So I highly recommend the Alamo as a place to visit as well, because that's kind of where it started in that battle.
Well, first of all, we're glad that you're here. And second of all, congratulations on your retirement, man. And best of luck in the new chapter of your life.
Yes, it'll be fun figuring that out. So I'm looking forward to it.
Super. Hey, by the way, gentlemen, this isn't just a two-way conversation here. Like, if you are listening to one of the other members and you want to ask a question, just pop in. I'll open it up, and that goes for you guys over there on Facebook and YouTube. I'll pass along those questions.
So I have a question for Alvin. Alvin, your guitar playing, do you have any guitarists that you particularly like?
Probably my favorite guitar is a $250 maple Honer, which I found at a junkie music store 30 years ago, and that plays as good as any guitar I have, I'll be honest with you. Then my favorite, we also have a guitar factory here in Austin. Collins actually is made here in Austin. And so I had a custom made Collins made, and I'm real happy with that one. And then I have a Taylor as well. So probably my favorite though is my Collins, but it just plays it's just so easy to play. And I need easy to play because my finger dexterity is not what it used to be.
Are there any famous guitar players that you like to listen to?
I love just playing acoustic rock. I mean, acoustic country, acoustic rock. I used to attempt to play some of the. I used to have an electric, but I just couldn't play lead very well, so I mostly play rhythm. Mm-hmm. But John Denver. I mean, just that kind of music is fine with me. And of course, I play a lot of Hank Williams songs because you can play every Hank Williams song you ever wrote with 3 chords. So, but again, I'm pretty diverse on that. But acoustic country is what I like mostly, and folk.
There's a famous quote. I think the 3 chords thing. It's from a song. And he goes, all I have is this guitar, 3 chords, and the truth. What a brilliant, I don't know what song that's from.
I don't remember either, but it sounds good.
Yeah, it's a great line. I wish I could write something like that.
It's a line, I can't remember which song, but it's U2.
Is it you too?
Yeah.
Great line.
And that's just a lesson to be learned. You know, I'm not a great guitar player, but I can carry a tune. And you know, if you don't have to be the best at something that anybody could do, you can have a lot of fun with it.
That is true. That's true for my entire life. Alvin, who are you going to pass it on to there, brother?
Okay, let me pass this on to. I think I'll pass on to Michael Tan. Michael, take it away, brother.
Thank you, Alvin. I'm Michael Tan. They call me Mike. Start off with I'm smoking a Maestro Castillo pipe with Jeff Reed, one of our fellow members, turned me on to the Carmel Pipe Shop. It's their Duke No. 2 blend. It's a Cavendish blend. I'm a Midwestern boy that somehow ended up in California. Did a 4-year stint in the Army, followed by almost 30 years in law enforcement. I retired back in 12. And then I was able to follow my passion, and I've been running cognitive behavioral therapy groups inside of prisons with what the outside world calls the worst of the worst, the lifers, the mass murderers, that kind of thing, for the last decade. And I'm retiring again in June, so I'm trying to catch up with you, Alvin. For fun, besides doing those group with those really unique individuals, my youngest was born 10 years ago. So I've got a 9.5-year-old that I'm chasing around. She swims competitively and keeps me young and keeps me busy.
Congratulations.
So I've been since like 83 and just been loving life out here.
Outstanding.
Oops, sorry about that.
I'm loving the dad thing now that I got the age and the patience and the time. The first couple of kids, I never had the time, it seemed, to do what I wanted with them. And now it's like I got all the time in the world. I'm having a blast.
Mike, I wanted to ask you, in your prison groups, do you have an individual that maybe stands out to you with a particular story that you can tell?
Oh, God. What we do is it's a trauma-based CBT group. And so we deal with a lot of childhood traumas that they went through. Mm-hmm. And some of these kids have they're not kids, they're 40s and 50s now, have horrendous backstories. And, you know, they're not telling this to some judge trying to get leniency. They talk to the other fellows in the group and sharing. And just horrible things, you know, the worst things you can imagine. I've got men here that don't remember a day that they were not abused as a child. I had a young man that was in his 40s when he started a group that the police found him as an infant beaten in a car seat in the middle of the road, and they didn't think he was going to survive. And this is the kind of horrid stuff that these people have lived through. It's like no wonder they had issues growing up. If you're familiar with the adverse childhood experience scale, it's a 10-point scale, and most of us will have like a 2 or 3 points on it. Some of these guys max out at 9 or 10 points. And if you go over 4, your chances of becoming an IV drug user, a criminal, heart disease, diabetes skyrockets. You go from a baseline of what we have in the regular world, and you can go up 2,000, 3,000, 4,000% more likely to be an IV drug user with an ACE score of 6 or 7. So it's been really cool getting these guys to share their stories, to work with each other, and we've seen positive outcomes. The group I work with is out of UCLA, and we do research. And they've done multiple peer-reviewed articles showing the success of the program. So it's really pretty cool stuff. Just I'm getting a little too old to go inside a prison. You know, at 60, I'm tired of strapping on a protective vest and making sure that the cops know where the heck I'm at all the time.
Yeah. Well, thank you for the work that you've been doing. Some of you guys know my wife is also a psychotherapist, and for those of you watching it who didn't catch what Mike said, so CBT is called cognitive behavioral therapy, and it's very effective, but it's also takes a special person with a perseverance to facilitate that for other people, especially guys like that. So, Mike, that's awesome of you.
It is.
I like the whole spirit of the whole thing. Now we have these guys in prison. They've done some pretty horrendous things, I'm sure. But we're with your program. You're not forgetting at the core of all of this is a human being who's been through some terrible things themselves, which very likely shaped and influenced what happened thereafter. So and because they're there and they're locked away, it doesn't mean they're in any less need of emotional help and support. It doesn't mean that. And I think it's great that you're going in there into that setting. There's a lot of places we can do cognitive behavioral therapy for a lot of different people and a lot of different reasons, but you're going in there and helping these guys, and that's really important. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. If you guys are familiar with the movie Stir Crazy with was it Richard Pryor and was it Gene Wilder in that
Gene Wilder,
one?
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Richard Pryor did an interview afterwards where he was talking to one of the inmates in there, and he said, well, what are you here for? He says, I did 5 homicides. And Richard Pryor asked, well, what was why'd you do it? He says, well, I was hired as a hitman to go kill this one person. And then Pryor said, well, why do you have 5 homicides on you then? Well, they were home, was the response. And I actually had almost an identical conversation 4 or 5 years ago with the guy hired by the Mexican Mafia to go kill one person. Only place he could ever find him was home, so he killed everybody. It's like that mindset is just, difficult to get your head around.
It is.
Yeah.
Well, Mike, who are you going to pass the pipe on to today?
Okay. Well, let's see if there's anybody I don't recognize. Because all y'all are regulars, So, oh, heck. Well, you know what? I always see regulars. So how about Sean McConnell? You want to give us your backstory?
All right. Thank you, Michael. Let's see. Originally a California boy from San Jose. So when you said the Carmel Pipe Club, it's one of the areas I used to live in. Moved out into Massachusetts in 2002. And in a few months, getting ready to move down to Georgia. So kind of doing my stint around the United States. Let's see. Have 4 kids, all of them grown, 1 granddaughter. So in this time in my life, it's kind of a new chapter, as it were. And let's see, hobbies. Well, I kind of fiddle around with another musical instrument. This is my bagpipe chanter. Kind of picked this up as kind of a bucket list instrument I wanted to learn. Kind of having a go at it, having a lot of fun. And when I go down to Savannah, I'll be joining the Savannah Drum and Pipe Club that's down there. So I'm really looking forward to that. Let's see. Dorian, when I was younger, I studied a lot of martial arts, a lot of Tai Chi. I had a teacher who taught very many disciplines. Now I'm kind of blanking on 7-Star Praying Mantis was really kind of his focus on that, and had a lot of fun with that. But kids kind of got in the way. The idea of becoming a movie martial artist kind of went by the wayside.
Was this in San Jose?
This is in Los Gatos.
In Los Gatos? Do you remember his name by any chance?
Gregory Delaney.
Greg Delaney.
He taught with Kuo Yin Ying's wife at the Tai Chi Center in San Francisco.
I know that. So
I'm sure you know the name.
Yes. Yeah. Well, Sifu Guo was my first teacher.
Oh, wow.
That's how I got started in 45 years ago. I went to college in the Bay Area, and that's where I did a lot of my martial arts training. And so I always want to hear the names of teachers because I do know quite a few of them from that area. The name rings a faint bell, but I couldn't say that I really know who you're talking about.
He
But
was an interesting fellow, really kept with the whole mystique of being a martial arts teacher. He kind of looked like Charles Manson, so he was an interesting guy. Didn't charge, really taught a lot of the aspects of what a traditional martial arts teacher-student relationship would kind of be. I was very fortunate to study with him for several years. As a young high school student, I had to be into Los Gatos by like 4 a.m. and do about an hour and a half of teaching before I had to start high school. So he kind of kept it more of a traditional style. It was lots of fun. But I kind of left that, got into photography for many years, which was my first career, and then eventually went back into construction when I came back out here of Massachusetts, and was very fortunate to work in historical preservation. So kind of like Alvin's deal, where all those historical sites need to be maintained. So out here in Massachusetts, did a lot of residential, but did a lot of historic building restoration, where moldings and taking things apart, bringing them up to code, and putting everything back the way they originally were was very important to keep the aspect of the buildings looking correct. And let's see, that's about it. Today, I'm smoking my Yearlick poker, one that I got from a raffle from the Sherlock Holmes Pipe Club, and I got to sneak peek. Let's see if I can find that. Bear Jensen's Uno, which this will go on sale, I believe, on Tuesday. Got my inside connection, was able to get a tin a little early.
Sweet. How is it?
I have to be honest, I'm not a huge Latakia smoker, so I really don't have a point of reference to really give it a decent review. But so far, I'm really liking it. So any of you gentlemen out there who's more of an English Latakia smoker, when you get a hold of it, give the group a much better review than I could.
Sounds like something I will enjoy.
Yeah, I'm mostly Virginia smoker, but this has the Catarini Perique, which is a Oriental from Greece, and they do the Perique process to turn into but also has some St. James Perique in there as well.
Huh. And Sean, shout out for your craftsmanship in the restoring historic properties. That's not something anybody can do.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's right. I do a lot of really high-end remodeling and stuff like that. It's part of that, hands-on type of stuff.
Yes,
it's a lot of fun. Let's see,
Sean, can you pass that along to Steve Spent? He's been at the front of the queue there for a bit.
All right, well, then there we go. Steve, take it away, buddy.
Thanks, Sean. I didn't even have my hand up. I'm not sure how I was at the front of the queue, but hey, I'll go. Good to see everybody today. I'm smoking the, let's see if I can get, all right, I'm challenged today trying to get, okay. The Castello Old Antiquari Lavat, smoking in it some Peterson Flake that's got a couple years age on it, which has done it wonders, actually. I wasn't too blown away by it when it was fresh, but pretty nice now, smoothed out nicely. Backstory, what can I share with you guys? I'm born and raised in Central Illinois, Decatur area, my entire life. Way back in 1988, I obtained an accounting degree and have proceeded to work my entire career in various accounting, or actually, accounting as well as internal audit positions, and probably more years as an auditor than a straight accountant. But since 2005, I have been with Archer Daniels Midland Company, which is headquartered here in Decatur. I guess the global headquarters are now in Chicago, but the U.S. headquarters are here in Decatur, Illinois. Hobbies. Probably my number one hobby pastime over the last over 30 years for sure. Probably close to 40 now is music. You know, I played guitar. I've played guitar and played in a number of local bands. Not really currently playing in one right now, but that's probably been my number one hobby. I have a lot of things I enjoy doing. I used to fish a lot more than I do and camp and those types of activities, and hoping to get back into at least into the fishing when I've got a little more time here. I see retirement off in the horizon, so maybe once I get over that hurdle, I'll have a little more time to devote to some of these things. But
Steve, what kind of bands do you play in?
I've typically always been in classic rock or harder rock bands. Really enjoy a lot of styles of music, but my guitar playing has mostly been rooted in blues and rock. Dabble a little bit in country, but the newer country that's a little more akin to pop and rock. I guess I like quite a bit of that. But yeah, that's mostly what I play. I do enjoy listening to a lot of different types of music, but those are the primary types of music that I play.
Steve, who are your favorite guitar players?
I knew somebody was going to ask that. Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Yep.
Yeah.
I knew I liked him for a reason. There we go, Steve.
A lot of classic players, of course, from the 70s I admire a lot. You know, Page, Hendrix, Clapton. Again, I came of age in the 80s, so I was very much into the hair metal and the harder rock in the 80s and 90s. So, of course, you know, Eddie Van Halen and George Lynch and some of those players I still enjoy listening to a lot to this day.
Awesome.
Yep, lots of different influences. The only other thing I think to tell you, I've got 2 stepdaughters from a previous marriage, 4 grandsons. So I think they're both done. So that may put a cap on it. I don't think I've got any more grandchildren on the way, but engaged to be married for the second time later this year.
Oh, congratulations!
Thank you, and my condolences on your dog, David. I've been through that numerous times, and I know how tough.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
That's it. Unless you guys got questions, I will turn it over to someone else. Let's hear from Dave. Dave Renick.
Hey guys, I'll just start off with congratulating brother Alvin on his retirement.
Thank you, Dave.
Career in a pretty worthy place. But it sounds like you had a really interesting career and you've left yourself quite a legacy. So congrats on that, and condolences in advance to brother DDR, as most of us have been there before. But I grew up in a small little town called Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, and now I live 40 miles east of there in a town called Regina, Saskatchewan. And I spent most of my life in Saskatchewan. Aside from after high school, I spent 3 years touring around in the south and found out that I was probably a Texan at heart when I did custom harvesting. And we went all the way down to a little town called Throckmorton, Texas.
Yes, there you go.
And I just fell in love with the people down there and the way of life. It's much similar to Saskatchewan in Texas. Like, we're all the same. Farm, rural. Everything's based on what happened at harvest or whatnot. And worked my way all the way back up to northern Manitoba. We'd start harvesting grain and at the end of May, and we would work right into the middle of November up in northern Manitoba and Saskatchewan, where we were combining fields of peas that were covered in snow already. And so after that, I took a job at Canadian Pacific Railway. I've been working there I'm on my 27th year now. I'm a locomotive engineer. We haul gigantic masses of bulk goods. We haul cars. We haul just about everything except for people on Canadian Pacific. It's been a pretty interesting career, and it's provided me with a good living for my family, which I have 2 children, both grown, and a granddaughter who's going to be 1 year old here. I'm about 8 years from retirement. And attached to that job, I also represent the Teamsters Canada Rail Conference, which is our union. I have 350 members locally and 3,500 members in total. As a local chairman, which, I litigate cases against the company with regards to human rights, harassment, collective agreement violations, et cetera, et cetera. Hobbies are snowboarding. I'm a metal star in my own garage, kind of like Alvin again. I'm a real great musician as long as nobody else is around to hear it.
That's correct.
Yeah, and my favorite stuff is a little different than most people. It's a little bit more raunchy, like for me, like Slayer. Slayer, I would consider kind of easy listening. So, it goes all the way up to like Suffocation and different names of stuff that I won't say on here, but the vocals are quite interesting.
Yeah.
Now we know that Dave really is a true Canadian.
So, other hobbies are I convert beer into pee. That's my superpower. And when I'm not shoveling snow, I also like to do some shooting, hunting, and outdoor camping, etc.
Dave, were you always an engineer? Is that how you started in the railway, or did you work your way up?
Yeah, no, I started as a brakeman where, if they're the dirtiest, worst job on the crew was, hey, you go do that. And I've been an engineer for 12 years now.
You have one of the coolest jobs among all of us, I would say. Dave, do you when it comes to the metal music, do you like any progressive metal like Dream Theater and Rush or any of those bands?
Oh yeah, I love Rush. I love Dream Theater. Iron Maiden is, as far as prog metal, is like almost like Black Sabbath is to metal in general. Like they're the godfathers of the new wave of British metal, and Dave Murray and Adrian Smith are some amazing guitar players, and they play, well, there's now they have 3 amazing guitar players. It's almost like an orchestra of metal when they're on the stage. But for 3 people to play some of the intricate soloing and stuff that they do it's very tight, even live. They're in unison. It sounds almost like one instrument. And to me, that's amazing. Some of the other stuff is, you can get away with a little bit of mistakes with how much distortion and crap is going on. But yeah, those guys, Iron Maiden for sure. And, Geddy Lee, ever since I was a small child, the first record I ever got was a record called the Great White North album, and it's Bob and Doug McKenzie, which is like a spoof on Canadianism.
Hey, Ozer.
Yeah, how's it going, eh? But they have Geddy Lee play a couple songs. One of his it's like what is it? The 12 Days of Christmas.
Yeah.
And then the other one is like this Take Off, but it's just Geddy. That's when I learned about Geddy Lee. I might have been about 4 or 5 years old. And, I started listening to music when I was like buying my own heavy metal albums and stuff when I was about 7 or 8.
Dave, what was the best concert you ever went to?
Well, I've seen Iron Maiden 22 times, and there's a reason for it, because they have mastered their craft of working on the road, and it's incredible. It sounds amazing. It looks amazing. When you get this gigantic, like 5-story tall mummy coming out of the back of the stage and shooting fire out of his eyes. And, you know, it's something about it. Just, it gets all my, it hits all the right spots.
Sounds
or
like
whatever,
my third
I guess.
wife right there. I don't.
I got a couple of those in the background too, but
Dave, who are you gonna pass this along to there, brother?
just I want to make one quick shout out about the pipe. I just got this. It's Smoke and Barrel Briars, made by Ryan McCauley Lavat.
Oh,
It's a beautiful flame grain he made for me.
beautiful.
He's out of Texas, Arlington, Texas. Smoke and Barrel Briars, check them out. And I'm smoking Escudo. And I'm going to pass the mic on, or the pipe on, to brother Dimitri. Thanks, everyone.
Hello, everybody. Well, as you all know, I live in New York City, born and raised in Moscow, came here in 1992. By education, I'm a chemist, chemistry of biological active compounds and chemical engineering. I'm professional New York City tour guide. Well, my number one hobby is tobacco, pipes and cigars. I've been smoking cigars for over 30 years, smoking pipe for about 27 or 28 years. I do some pipe tobacco blending. Don't play any musical instruments, but I like music. Pretty much anything from Gregorian chants to heavy metal, depending on what I'm in the mood for. Probably the best concert I ever been to was a rock festival in Moscow with all the big stars. It was Ozzy Osbourne, Motley Crue, Cinderella, AC/DC, Scorpions, so a lot of other great musicians. So that was absolutely
amazing.
incredible show. Now I'm starting my day with this Brave pipe, which I bought from Steve Manjur, and I'm smoking John Cotton's double pressed Kentucky. And then I'm going to switch to this Dunhill, 2010 Dunhill. Not sure which tobacco I'm going to smoke in it. And that's about it.
Dimitri, what brought you to New York City?
Just ran away from Russia as soon as I got chance. And I hope I'll never go back.
Did you have other cities that you visited, or you just like, I'm going to New York and that's it, period?
Well, I visited some cities. I spent about half a year in Florida, in Tampa Bay area. I couldn't take it anymore. I need a real city to feel comfortable.
You have a very long, how do I put this? So I think you have you've shared it with us a little bit, but I was kind of digging into your knowledge of tobaccos, because you know so much about pipes, pipe tobaccos, cigars, cigar leaf, raw tobacco crops. Like, why?
Well, I just like tobacco. I used to be a regular at Nat Sherman's store, which existed for 90 years. So that was absolutely incredible place. So all people who work there became my friends. I keep in touch with many of them. Some of them still in cigar and tobacco business. So sometimes we get together, smoke together. And also now my friend and I, we start a new business. We want to sell premium cigars in Kenya. So we're still working on getting all the proper documentation, registration, all the tobacco licenses and so on, but hopefully it will work.
Very cool. Well, congratulations on that. You going to let us know when you launch so we can do a party?
Well, if everything goes well, I'll be in Kenya later this year, and we're planning to do our first event in November, if everything goes as planned.
That's great. That's cool. Any other, I don't want to hog the microphone there, so if anybody else wants to interrogate Dimitri. Okay, then. I'll let you pass the pipe along there.
To Perry.
I don't know if
I
Perry.
don't think he heard.
He has his hand raised.
There we go.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. I thought I was silent there. Well, first, go through the smoking. I've got actually 2 Costello Sea Rocks today. This Bulldog. And this bent brandy or whatever it is. Maybe bent billiard, I don't know. Get it to where you can see it. Anyway, and I'll be smoking some Plague Bringer from KBV. I don't have the label on this, so it doesn't look like much. And which is another one of his really strong Latakia blends. And I've got some 5-year-old Stonehaven that I have left over from a few years back, and I'll be smoking that as well. As for backstory, let's see. I was born in Ohio. My family moved to Southern California when I was just a kid. I grew up pretty close to the beach and surfed until I went into the Air Force. And I went in, I think I heard someone else say too, right at the end of Vietnam. I went in right at the end of Vietnam. And so I never went anywhere further than Phoenix, Arizona. And then when I got out, I came back to LA and finished school at UCLA. And in those days, I went into computer science, but in those days, they didn't have a computer science major. So, you did mathematics. And if you're a math major, then you certainly had the choice of going into time in the I want to say late 70s, and then I went to work for Computer Sciences Corporation, which did a lot of work on scientific type languages and satellites, and eventually ended up with the firm I was with for a very long time, actually a tax audit firm, Ernst & Young. Started as Arthur Young, and that got merged with Ernst & Whinney, and as companies do all the time. And though they were tax and audit, I was actually in the computer systems field. I did consulting for the companies we did tax and audit for. So I implemented a lot of computer systems for a variety of companies. In the beginning, I would implement financial systems, and then I moved on to implementing a variety of other business systems, warehouse, inventory, order management, planning, and so on and so on. I retired a few years back. I live up in the Sierra foothills near Lake Tahoe, and I've been a lifelong avid skier. And so I've skied Lake Tahoe, Squaw Valley, Heavenly, Sugar Bowl, a variety of other locations for many, many years, both at the resorts and in the backcountry. And last couple of years, I have not skied because of hip surgery, but that's been my biggest passion outside of work, of course. I have 3 grown sons, 3 grandchildren, and they all live in the kind of the general Sacramento area. So we get to see them all the time, and we're pretty happy about that. I did want to mention one thing. I think it was Mike that mentioned the prison work that he was doing. Early in my Arthur Young but one of the ladies that I worked with actually had, and I'll use the word opportunity, though I don't know if it was an opportunity, to interview Charles Manson. And so she was in a room with Charles Manson, asked him a lot of questions about different things. I don't know what the nature of her study was. I've forgotten. But the only comment she made to me is she had never met such a cold person in her life. And that was about it. She never talked about that discussion again. But anyway, that's my background. I don't know if you guys have any questions.
Well, I do. In your Ernst and Winning time, did you run across Mary Tan, or she might have been called Terry Tan at that point in time?
That name sounds familiar. Was she in the Sacramento or San Francisco offices?
No, oh, God, I don't remember where she was at the time. She was specialized in hospitals. And,
okay, so the healthcare and med group would have been a different part of the firm. They were based in Walnut Creek, so, and I was over there a lot, so I may have run into her. The name is familiar.
That's my stepmom.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah. Moment.
Nice.
So this is Uncle Perry, basically.
Yeah, Uncle Perry. Good to see you after all this time.
Yeah. I spent a lot of time in Seattle, did a lot of work for, Bocage Cellular, which became AT&T Wireless, and for Microsoft, both up there. DDR, it's a beautiful city. You're going to love living there. If I had a choice of moving anywhere, I would go to Seattle. That is just a great town.
I am loving it. Yeah, thank you. It's beautiful up here, and right now it's a beautiful day, and I'm glad to be here. Yeah. Well, Perry, who are you going to pass the pipe along there to?
Let's go to John Plunkett.
Thank you, Perry.
Mm-hmm.
Let me do the easy part first here. And I'm smoking my favorite tobacco of all times, which is Borkum Riff. Actually, I'm jerking your chain. I'm not smoking Borkum Riff. So I just happen to have some lying around.
I was going to say,
context.
Borkum Riff's the reason why I almost quit pipe smoking.
Yeah, we've all been talking about Borkum Riff before the meeting started.
Yeah, I know.
John,
I couldn't resist. I have this is there's something in it. I'm not sure what, but it still shakes. Seasons change, and I've gone to one of my favorite Codger blends here, half and half. I worked through a can of this. And as most of you know, my favorite tobacco is Sudler's Old Professor, because that's me. And I'm smoking this stuff in a Rossi kind of Paul sort of shape. Today, in terms of a backstory, I've traveled the twisted path, I guess. I'm a Virginian. My family came to Virginia in the 1690s, and we sort of stayed there. I was born in Lynchburg, and you can talk about the railroad warms my heart. My grandfather was a lifelong railroad guy. He ended his career as a station master in Lynchburg. He was more on the sales side. He was a commercial agent and that sort of stuff. Grew up primarily around the state of Virginia, but primarily in Richmond, Virginia, home of a lot of the tobacco industry. And went to school for a long time, too long, in a variety of different places. Collected a wall full of paper that I no longer mount on the wall. So I've worked in a variety of different industries over the years. I've worked in public education. I've worked in primary metals for a company that's no longer here. In fact, a lot of the companies I work for are no longer here. Not my fault, though. Reynolds
I was going to
Metals,
say, don't hire John, apparently. That's
right. Generally, it's a kiss of death. So Reynolds Metals, some of you may have heard of, was a large aluminum industry. I worked in the can division there for a while when I came out of public education. I started there as a technical writer and industrial photographer, and spent a lot of time in and out of manufacturing plants with photographic equipment, climbing in and around huge pieces of equipment that made aluminum cans. Very interesting industry. Story for another time. But I eventually ended up being division group manager for technical services for them. Real claim to fame for that is that my team won a Container of the Year award. There is such a thing for designing and producing an aluminum can for wines. Now, you may think wines and aluminum cans are not natural weighting, but the market for that was actually the airlines because of the weight reduction of aluminum over glass. I don't really know what happened with that product over time. Obviously, you can't go into 7-Eleven and buy wine and aluminum cans today that I know of. I haven't been to 7-Eleven probably 30 years. But after I've worked in public utilities, electric industry, worked in healthcare, both in the payer and provider side. Worked for a health insurance company, interested in business, somewhat criminal in nature, I guess. Worked in the delivery of healthcare at Georgetown University Medical Center as a director of technology services for those guys. It was a great school, great place. Enjoyed the job, enjoyed school, hated working in the district. That was driving into the district every day was a bit of a bear. Changed there and went, taking the technology background and went to work for News Corporation as one of James Murdoch's minions in News America Digital Publishing, where I was the operations VP for the largest online game company on the planet at the time. Best frickin' job ever. You know, not only was it a fun job because we were delivering a fun product, it did have its moments. Particularly in the online game space, because a lot of our customers were adolescent testosterone jockeys. And trying to manage that group was a bit of a chore from a terms of service perspective, because we had to try to maintain an environment that would keep people playing. But it was a lot. That was a lot of fun. We did the game for the movie Godzilla, the latest one that came out, and that was a riot, because we had these ironclad NDAs laid on top of us because of the intellectual property for the new Godzilla monster. The Toho folks were an interesting crew to work with. So that was fun. Left there, went to financial services, worked for Capital One. It was part of the crew that stood up CapitalOne.com. This was in the .com craziness days. Hated working in the financial services industry, which is kind of crazy. Left there and went back into higher ed, which took me to Massachusetts for a while. Came back to Virginia and went to work in the gambling industry, where I basically finished my career. So somewhat twisted path, moved me around the country a lot. Got me to a lot of places, got me to meet a lot of very, very nice, knowledgeable and fun people to work with. So I've been retired for a number of years. After a long time in Central Virginia, living in an old house that we maintain. So I appreciate the comments about historical preservation. We owned the Baker House. It was a historical house in Louisa, Virginia. It was built by a Buffalo soldier. We were the second family to live in it. The Baker family had lived in that from the time it was built until the early 2000s, when some flippers bought it, and we bought it from them. After 13 years of trying to decide what to fix this month, we tied it up and sold it and packed up and moved to North Carolina. Lived in a much smaller house with a much reduced maintenance profile to it. And we sort of live a quiet life. And here I work as tour guide volunteer in historic Edenton, which is an insanely historic little town. The town was established as a town in 1722. We have some people living in homes here that their ancestors built in the 1700s. And I do tour guide duty these days on our tour bus when people come into town, and spend my Saturday afternoons with you guys. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. So let me pass the virtual pipe and storytelling time off to Kent, the wheel piper.
Thank you, John. I'm not a very good storyteller, but I do enjoy it, whether my listeners enjoy it or not. So today I am smoking again. I think you've seen this one before. This is the Chesterfield from Colossus Pipe Factory, manufactured in somewhere between 1880 and 1900. I like things that are historic. We live in a house right now. It was our project house, built in 1896. That's young by East Coast standards. But so in this pipe, I have some Sutliff Burma Road, wonderful American English with hints of vanilla and rum, two things that I like. When I get done with this pretty soon, I've got loaded that same tobacco in this one. It's a Wellington, a straight Wellington, manufactured in about that same time period. And it's my ranch pipe. It has a ranch brand on it, which is the Swinging JL. I have not figured out where the Swinging JL was, but I'm still working on it. I like that kind of researching thing. When we bought this house, we didn't know much about it, but I spent hours and hours in the local library researching the people who lived in it at first, who it was built for and built by, and so much. And it's a small town, so they knew me well enough that they just let me. They'll turn off nearly all the lights, just the ones going to the door, and the door would be set to lock once I left, and I'd just close the library almost every night. So that was a lot of fun. I do research a lot. I started out that way. I took a bachelor's degree in mathematics and biology many years ago, and then went on to Texas A&M. I'm an Aggie, and took a postgraduate degree and in marine biology, and worked on that. Went into research for the USDA for a while, and worked on research and in higher education for a lot of years. Along the way, I had careers in my hobbies. Baking, cooking led to becoming a pastry chef and a food service manager for a while. And then I went back into research later on, and was disabled from that, not from doing it, but while I was doing that. And I have, we have 3 boys and 14 grandchildren, and just enjoying them, even the ones that are way over in England. And as far as hobbies, I always enjoyed the out of doors, and I still do. Less camping and hiking, although accessible trails is a thing for me. I run a on again, off again access consulting business to help people and businesses, non-government agencies, government agencies, those kinds of places, to be as accessible as they can. And I do advocacy for disability issues and that kind of thing. So that keeps me busy enough. Gardening a little bit, although I've handed the gardening off to the one of the grandsons who's most interested in it. And but I still keep up hobbies of nature photography. And about when I was 13, we were choosing up band instruments. Remember those days? I really wanted to play the flute. But in the late 60s in the Midwest, and you're 13-year-old boy, unless you want to get beat up a lot, you don't say that you want to play the flute. So when I turned 30, I realized that I was not getting a year younger every year, but it really works the other way around. You may not have noted that, so sorry I gave that away, but it happens that way. So I wanted to do some things that I wanted to do, and took up golf. I found out that golf isn't as fun as walking, and it's the opposite as well, and that it's not about the equipment. I never got better, no matter the equipment I had. And I wanted to take up the flute. So I took lessons. I wanted to, to play the flute in the worst way. And that's exactly how I learned to play it. So it was something like music, but again, historic stuff. I got into old tin whistles and fipple flutes and all sorts of things, ocarinas. It's hard for me to just do a hobby. I have to throw myself into it. And since I like historic stuff, that's why a lot of my pipes are connected to time periods or companies that are historic. So that's about it. By the way, I always wanted a nickname while I was growing up in junior high school. I was a co-editor of the paper, the school paper. And some smart aleck, most of the people I worked with were smart alecks. Remember, this is the 70s. And so they decided to give me a nickname. And unfortunately, it was true. And unfortunately, it stuck. I was known as boring. So there we go.
Oh, I don't think that's true today at all. You know what the other name for an ocarina is, right?
A sweet potato.
A sweet potato, that's right. So those of you who are watching who are under the age of 60, I guess, so the ocarina is this little pipe that looks like a potato. Fun fact.
Just say it's what you listen to on Zelda.
That's right. Yeah. Okay, there we go. Fun fact, my parents did not like giving me money for losing a tooth, like the tooth fairy. So I used to get an ocarina under my pillow every time I had a collection when I was a kid.
Now that's abuse right there.
That's abuse right there. That's right.
No, technically, you're not supposed to call it a sweet potato. That's how come you know someone who doesn't really play one, because it's a sweet potato.
Sweet potato. That's what I said.
Yeah.
Sweet potato. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, we always love having you here. You're not boring whatsoever. So we're gonna have to give you a new nickname. Yes, family. This is our project for the week. Right? We have to come up with a new nickname for Kent. Who do you want to pass the pipe along to today?
Okay. And by the way, I do lately look like one of the Smith brothers, if you know what that is. So you can't call me Smith. Okay. You don't have to call me Ray either. Okay. I think David Klein looks like the next victim in this row. So he's the one who did it. He's it.
Thank you, Ken. Well, it's good to hear from everybody. Good to see everybody again this week. And so first of all, what I'm smoking here is my Abdul Karim Cobra pipe. And in it, I've been smoking some Seattle Pipe Club Deception Pass. And that's quite tasty. And I'm just about done with this pipe, so I'm going to move on to something else. But my backstory is that I was born and raised in a little town in southeastern Washington state called Walla Walla, Washington. And so you grew up there.
You grew up near Dimitri, right?
No, I don't think too close to Dimitri.
Well, Walla Walla is just a hop, skip, and a jump from Moscow, though.
Yeah. Well, this is Walla Walla. As they say it's a town they like so much they named it twice. But anyway, yeah, I grew up there, went to high school there. And when I graduated high school, I had this idea that I was going to be a mortician. And so I went down and got a job at one of the local funeral homes, and I was an apprentice there. And when Michael Tan, before he left, I guess he's not online anymore, but he was talking about going into prisons and doing work there. And so during my time at the funeral home, we used to have occasional coroner duty, which meant that when somebody died at the state prison, we would have to go get them. And that was probably the scariest thing that I ever did. There was one time we went and got a guy who died of natural causes, but the other times were suicides. One time a guy was stabbed 27 times. One time the guards shot a prisoner who was trying to escape. And as an 18-year-old kid going out there to do that, I can remember thinking, God, I hope my mother doesn't find out about this, and she'd be worried to death. But probably the scariest time I had working at the funeral home. But after that, I ended up joining the Army, and I was stationed at Madigan Army Medical Center right by Tacoma. And I had my, it was in the Army Medical Department. So we always said we were in a quasi-military outfit. And my medical training was at Fort Sam Houston, Texas, which is in San Antonio. So I've been to the Alamo and all of that. And I got out of the Army. And by the way, I'm like you, DDR. I had the easiest job in the world. I was in the Army during the Vietnam War, but I never went to Vietnam. And after basic training, never had to shoot a rifle or never had to stand in formation. My job was working in the pharmacy at the hospital, and it was just like having a civilian job. I lived off post and went into the hospital every day and made IV solutions for all of the inpatients in the hospital. And so got out of the Army, and I ended up going to college at Pacific Lutheran University in Tacoma. And I studied actually broadcast journalism there. And I was planning a career in TV or radio or something, and one thing led to another, and decided I needed to make some money. And I ended up taking a job at Merrill Lynch as a financial advisor. And so I've done that for 37 years, and coming up here on August 1st will be my last day with Merrill Lynch. I've been in a pre-retirement program for the last 4 years, transferring my clients over to my business partner. And August 1st will be my very last day. And then I'll be unemployed after that. So in my spare time, I don't do much for hobbies. I like smoking pipes. I do have a guitar, but I'm crappy at it. I have a ukulele. I can play that a little bit, and I have an accordion that every once in a while I get that out of the box and do a little squeezing on that. But other than that, I'm living here in Florida now. Spent my entire life living in Washington State, and Western Washington, so cold and damp, rainy all the time. I decided I wanted to get out of there and move to someplace nice and warm. And I ended up meeting a very nice lady that happened to live here in Florida. And so a couple of years ago, we got together and ended up moving down here. And even though I'm still technically working, I can work remotely on my computer. So don't have to actually go to an office every day. But, and then I was going to tell you, when I was in the Army and stationed there in Tacoma, Washington, I went to the tinderbox store and I bought this pipe. And I've had it all these years. So I'm going to smoke that next, and I'm going to smoke some Kramer's Father Dempsey. So
Dave,
that's my story. And
telling everybody that you were thinking about a career in broadcast journalism. You have a great voice, guys.
Well,
what do you think? You've got a fantastic sort of radio voice.
Thank you for that. My short radio career was in public radio, and in public radio, you don't really have a radio voice. You have, it's not like typical broadcasting. So in public radio, NPR and all of that, people just use a natural voice. There's no affected, the round tones and all of that stuff. So never got into that too much.
You have the right timbre.
Yes.
That's me with my NPR sort of intellectualizing. Right timbre. But you can come back to it now. Now that we live in the era of podcasting and live streaming like this, you could have an entirely new career and go back to the things you love.
Right. Well, at my age, it's a little late to start something new in life, but who knows? I'm 68. I'll be 69 this year, so I'm not quite ready just to sit in the rocking chair and smoke my pipe, but maybe I can go be a greeter at Walmart or something like that.
With the right timbre. Well, who are you going to pass the pipe along to there, sir?
Well, let's pass it over to, how about David Johnson? David, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here somewhere. Well, let's see. I'm smoking my Mr. Brugg. I can't see me, so I don't know whether you can hear it.
We can see you and we can hear you.
You're good,
Right
Dave.
there. It's got a wind cap on it, and I'm smoking 1Q. And when I get done with that, I'll probably switch over to my my newest acquisition, which is I finally ended up getting a Bones. Chris Morris. So I'm probably going to switch over to that later on. Let's see, backstory. Okay. Born and raised in Connecticut, little town called Prospect. We used to call it the best little small town in Connecticut. I didn't have any hobbies growing up. My biggest hobby growing up was staying away from the bullies. That was my little tricks. Trying to not get beat up every day. I don't know why I was a target, but anyway, when I left home, let's see, I had a couple of part-time jobs in high school, and then I went to military, and I did 10 years in the Navy. I went in right at the end of Vietnam. I missed the last of the last days of the Vietnam era by about 6 months. And I enlisted in 75 and got out in 86. And drove a taxi for a couple of years. And after that, I went to I did a lot of temporary jobs, temporary work. I went from one temp job to another for several years, but it seems like I went to a lot of the same places time after time. I worked for the State Port Authority for a while, and I worked for let's see, I was a quality control manager for Texaco for a little while. The the plastic oil bottles, that was the plant that I worked at. And I worked there for a little while. The biggest thing I used to do there all the time was the guys that inject and molding the bottles. I used to one of my supervisors told me that the one thing that I did most often was make everybody in the injection molding department mad. Because if I found a couple of oil bottles defective, I would go in, and they had a conveyor, and it came down the conveyor, and then it did switchbacks up like 15, 20 feet in the air. And then it went over and did switchbacks to a assembly area. And then it went through another set of switchbacks up and went through the top of the wall in another section where they filled the bottles. And so what I would do is if I found several defective bottles, I'd just go in there and pick a place on there and just swoop everything off of the conveyor and throw them into these wheeled buckets, great big, huge, and send them back up there. And I'd tell them to grind them up and cast them again. Because a lot of times there were air holes in them, or the labels were bad, or something was wrong with it that had to be done over again. So that's what I did that for a while. And I worked in a lot of construction. Just odd jobs. And I was going to college. I wanted to get a degree in business. And I moved around a little bit. So I went to, 3 different community colleges trying to get a degree in business. I had this one lady told me, she said, if you get your degree in business, you can, and then you get a minor in business, and then you get your degree. She says, you go from there, you can write your own ticket. You go from there and you do anything you want to do. And anyway, when I finally got my associate's degree, ended up rather than in business, I got my degree in criminal justice. And so I went on from there, worked for Pinkerton for a while, and I worked for a couple other places for a while, and I had a lot of security in the military to fall back on, because a couple of places that I was stationed was nuclear capable. And when they're nuclear capable, they have a higher level of, you got a higher security clearance, and they got a higher level of security. So so I kind of fell back on that, and that was my experience that I used to. That was my, that I fall back on, and so after that, I had a little relocation, and I went to a school, and I got my 4-year degree. It was a bachelor of divinity, and the school, they didn't have their license. The school license. They didn't have a license to grant master's degrees or anything higher than a bachelor's. But if you went through the school longer than the bachelor's degree, you got the highest thing yet. You can get an honorary doctorate in Christian education or divinity or whatever. And so I took, because of my bachelor's, I took the divinity track, and I completed that. And then I ended up moving to Phoenix, and I went to work for a little company that made medical catheters. And then I went and worked for American Express, Discover, and then I went to work for a bank. And I was a banker for a few years, and then I got put on disability, and I got retired in 2001. And so I'm a disabled veteran, and that's pretty much brings me up to the present. I've been a volunteer disability advocate for probably almost 20 years. I was volunteering for the local veterans hospital, and they don't have anything as far as volunteer disability advocates, but the ones that have alcohol and drug rehabilitation centers, you can go in there and you can, take somebody under your wing, and you can contact somebody, kind of like a sponsor, and you can work with them. You can advocate for them, and so I did that for close to 30 years. I started that back in the 80s.
David, I got a question for you. So, I think probably several of us in the group have a similar kind of, like John Plunkett said, he had a twisted path. I've had so many jobs that my mother-in-law thinks that I'm lying half the time. I tell her what other job I've had. So you've had tons of different kinds of jobs and many careers with it. What's your favorite? Which one was the one that you liked the best?
Probably quality control. I think that the type of quality control that I was doing when I was working for Texaco, if I had a job that I would make a career of, that would probably something along that line, something in that type of department. That's, I think that would probably be the one.
Awesome.
David, I wanted to ask you, you mentioned working for Pinkerton. They've got quite a reputation all the way back to, I think, the Civil War. What did you think of them? What did you like working for them?
Yeah, they were almost exclusively security. So it's private security. So, it's like any other security firm. But I was working for Pinkerton, and I don't remember what year it was, but anyway, one of the things that I was doing was kind of like a what you could probably call a resident assistant. It's like being the manager of a residential area. Enough. Kind of like a residential place when the managers weren't there. And it's like, for example, I got a phone call one night. This lady called up. She says she thought she was having a heart attack. And this was a tower. It's like 17 floors. And she said she thought she was having a heart attack. So I called the floor monitor, got her out of bed. And I said, I got a call from so-and-so, meet me down there. And I grabbed her door key. I went up to her floor and I went in, and it was one of the things that they had was they're not allowed to put locks on the inside of their door. If they wanted another lock on the inside of their door, if they wanted their own secondary security, they had to have it installed by the property, and they had to grant access. Well, this lady had a lock that you couldn't open from the outside. So I bust the door in, and we go in, and the lady's in bed. She's lucid, talking, whatnot. And I checked her, and it's like, no, I don't think you're having a heart attack. But I called 911. I took the elevator down and opened up the emergency doors, and the ambulance rolled up right about the time I got down there. And so I was the go-between between the, calling the ambulance and getting her taken care of, and doing everything that a manager would do if they were there. And the next day, the manager comes in, and of course they got a report on their desk, and then they got, the lady was taken to the hospital, and they got follow-up and whatnot, and they took care of all that. And they said, okay, don't worry about it. You didn't do anything wrong. Matter of fact, you did right. You busted in the door, and, we take care of that, no problem, and you're okay.
David?
And so...
Only because we're heading down towards the call button there. I'm going to move us along because there's a couple more guys that haven't had a chance to go yet. I hope that you don't mind. I'm going to ask you to pass the pipe along
Yeah, I didn't want to go into a long, drawn-out
Oh, no,
answer.
man.
and
You
describe
have a
why,
fascinating-
I mean, there's, while I was in the military, I got a medal for working on the ship and saving the Navy about $3.5 million for a dry dock period that they didn't have to do and all that. But that's going to take too long to get into. So I'm not, I don't want to.
We'll do it on another day. We'll do it. So who are you going to pass the pipe along to there? I think
Glenn.
There we go.
Glenn's been waiting for quite a while.
Glenn, you're muted.
You're muted, Glenn.
Well, it's not muted, but I think your mic's not working.
There, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I mentioned my family's basically Dutch. They go back to the Dutch East India Trading Company. I have ship captains. I have military people back in the 1400s. We trace all the way back. Our first American was Johannes Claver, and they actually spelled it right. He was Claver, but they changed the name to Clover. He was in the New York Regiment in the Revolutionary War. And since then, I think pretty much every generation somebody has been in the military. So very proud of that. I grew up on the Iron Range here in Minnesota, which is the iron mining area in the northern part of the state. Went to the University of Minnesota for pre-med and did my first 3.5 years until I got a very low draft number. So I enlisted. I went basic training up in Fort Lewis, Washington. My first exposure to that beautiful area. And several times I think I commented to my drill sergeant that, oh, this beautiful forest, and I can see the sound from here. And he said, shut up and keep marching. But finished my basic, went to, luckily, got transferred to the Air Force to Keesler Air Force Base in the aviation group and became an air traffic controller. And from there, went to Vietnam for a year. Uncle Sam felt sorry for me being in the jungle for a year, so he sent me to a German ski resort for 2 years. And I was stationed on the highest point in central Germany, which was Hitler's glider school. It's called the Wasserkuppe. It's the highest point, and they're still to this day, they do glider training there. Finished that, went back to my pre-med and found out that there were now more than 1,000 people ahead of me. So my counselor said, why don't you keep everything you've learned and go into public health medicine? So I did that. Worked for the state health department for about 7 years. And with my additional college training, fell in love with computers and started programming in Fortran for my job there at the health department and for other people. And when CompuServe, the big data company, opened up an office in Minneapolis, they hired me to do their Fortran programming. And I went from there to networking, to all the various parts of the pre-internet mainframe company. So CompuServe, WorldCom, International Network Services, British Telecom. So for 40 years, I was in that industry, and I retired in 2014 after 40 years. And so now I spend my time as an audiophile. I've been collecting stereo equipment and in love with music and the reproduction of music since 1959. I have probably 200 pieces of audio gear, multiple turntables, receivers, tuners. I have a little over 10 kilowatts of amplifier power. I'm also a camera collector. I have almost 300 cameras, mostly SLRs, but pretty much everything I started collecting back in the 50s, but did wedding photography for 2 years till I paid for all my gear, and then I quit because it's a very annoying practice. But I still kept all my equipment. I've got SLRs, rangefinders, medium format, large format, And the largest is a Birkin James 10 by 14 view camera with a very nice lens on it, the brass lens. And pipes. Today I'm smoking my Magic Unknown English pipe. It's the coolest smoking pipe I have. And I'm burning some Solani's Mystery tobacco. And this past week I finished a Savinelli silver spigot, Army mount, and also a Savinelli, a Stanwell, and a Stanwell Pipe of the Year for 2002. Both very nice pipe, both Stanwells. And that's about it.
That Stanwell, is that the Yaskonovich design?
I have the list, but I don't know if that's his or not. But
It kind of looks like it. Yeah, it's kind of cool.
It's called the Silver Mount Stanwell.
Cool.
Glenn, I'm going to have to move you along to pick somebody else there. I was saying that we've got a lot of questions for you, young man. I want to know about your camera collection, plus, some of the other things there. I know that Tim, why don't you go ahead and ask your question? Because it's on the tip of your tongue, I can tell. So
I didn't have any questions. I'm sorry.
No. All right. I was just making that up. I just wanted to test you to see if. Glenn, go ahead and pick our next person. Pass the pipe along.
I will snap the shutter to Sergio.
Thank you very much, Glenn. Hi, hello, everyone. What a collection, Glenn, by the way. 300 cameras. Wow. Hey, that's beautiful. I just want to say hello to everyone. And you probably guys, some of you might know, but yeah, I'm always been into my business is what I do for a living. I'm on the table grapes business. Always been doing the same thing since that's what my dad still doing it, and it's a family business. So I'm just partnered with my father. My brother used to be involved in the business. I have a brother and a sister, and they live. By the way, I live in Mexico. I live right next to the state of Arizona, and my brother, I'm 47. My older brother, he lives in Florida. He's a banker. He's been living there for the last 15 years, and I have a sister. She lives in Arizona in Tucson, and I'm the youngest one here. Yes, for a living, I've always been into the grapes, fresh fruit, table grapes, and I've been having all my life a lot of different hobbies. But what I love to do is nowadays riding my mountain biking. But since I was a kid, I was into motocross. And also motorcycle. I've been in my motorcycle. Normally, summer times, I ride my motorcycle in all the states in Canada. I started doing long trips since the 2007. It's a Harley motorcycle, and I've been visiting like the South Dakota with the Stargist rally. You guys probably, some of you might know it, which is the biggest rally in the States. Probably
Been there 3 times, Sergio.
Yes, beautiful. It's great. Yes, and I've been there also quite a few times. And the kind of motorcycles that I like to ride, it's like I do customize my motorcycles, and I had competed in that stuff, and been in magazines and stuff like that. And also the other hobbies that I do, it's I love to barbecue, and I did a team in Mexico with some of my friends, and we took first place in Mexico. And then after that, we went to the biggest barbecue tournament in the States, which is in Memphis. It's called Memphis in May. And we compete with 350 teams, and we took 29 place, which is, for the first time, was not bad, right? Yeah, it was great. We had a great time. We had a blast there. And I don't know what else to tell you guys. Of course, I love my pipe. That's one of my other hobbies. I started about 19 years ago. I bought my first pipe. Before that, I was into cigars, and I still enjoy sometimes more social stuff. When I go out with friends, I grab one of my cigars. But in the last 3 years, I would say I'm a lot more in my pipes collection. And I love everything around that is about the pipes, right? I don't know what else, guys. I did my high school in the States. That's where I learned my English. I did my high school in the States. I went to a military academy in Indiana. And also I have 4 kids. And that's what I do, my friends.
I looks pretty familiar there, Sergio. Who made that?
I know. Thank you.
I know that we've got a bunch of questions for you. I want to know all about where your fruit is grown, but we're so short on time. We're going to have to do a part 2. And there's one more gentleman who's been waiting so patiently. Let's let Sean K. back clean up, and we'll come back. Sergio. Oh, Stanislav is here. So Sean and then Stanislav.
Sorry, guys.
You're gonna. Yeah, Stanislav. Let Sean go first, and then you'll come on.
Indeed.
At the end.
Indeed.
Okay, I live just outside of Boston. I grew up in this area. I spent about 10 years living in upstate New York, where I went to school. That's where I met my wife. Got 2 kids that kind of drive me crazy, and that's kind of where I probably have so much gray hair, because my daughter's almost 20 and my son's learning to drive at 16. I often describe that my form of moderation is by the number of things I go too deeply overboard on, not so much in actually not doing. So I really like fly fishing. I shoot a recurve bow whenever I get a chance for relaxation. I prefer a standard transmission, which means when you consider the pipe, I tend to not do things the most efficient way, but I find them more pleasurable. I've been doing a lot with the Scouts over the past 10 or 15 years with my son, and I've done a lot of stuff with sci-fi conventions over the years.
Really? We're definitely having a part 2 to this whole thing there, because now I got a bunch of questions for you on that one. So just one.
Your service to the Scouts. I spent 20 years in scouting, and it's great.
Yeah, the only problem is sometimes the higher you do stuff, the less you actually interact with the Scouts, which is never a fun transition when you're moving over to more working with the adults and trying to get them trained up.
Yeah.
Okay. So that leaves Stanislav, who's going to be cleaning up.
That's right. Well, first of all, before we go, Sean, what are you smoking?
Right now, I've got a, which one was this? I'm smoking Bengal slices in a moonshine.
Oh, nice.
Which I love this pipe. I picked it up probably in the last year. I'd say over this past year, most of my pipe acquisition disorder has been in the Briarworks. They make a wonderful pipe, and I like the fact it's a little bit more open draw than a lot of the others.
Super. All right. Well, let's go on to Stanislav. And Sean, thanks for your little bit. We're
Okay, guys. Good morning, afternoon, evening, or whatever it is in there. I was born in Moscow, USSR, in 1970, and so I'm 52 years old. I was living in just at the border of the city Moscow, so I'm a great capital citizen. Just ordinary secondary school, then army. When I was in army, the USSR has been shattered, and I came out from one country and returned to another one. So actually, because USSR, as I told, has been shattered, so I returned to Russia. Then it was all the mess in 90s. So somebody maybe heard, somebody maybe read about it. But I was, I've been trying to survive, and so I came to the institute and finished it, tricked all my family because they wanted to see me like a technician, electric or someone, but I tricked them because I choose the computers. So I came from there as a network and system administrator, and that since 96 I worked in this. This is my occupation, and I work in this on this field. Switched 15 years ago from administration to the information security, and since that time, I worked for the several multinational companies. That's where my English from. What can I say more a little bit about myself? I have several hobbies like photography, half dozen of SLR, not 200. I like music. I translate English literature to the Russian. The books I like to be read to be read in Russian, but they have no English-Russian translation. I read the pipe tobacco reviews last year, about 100, actually 99. And that's all. I have a daughter, dog, wife, 6 cats, 2 horses. And that's my story.
And you have a really nice collection of Peterson pipes.
Oh, thank you. 40 of them, actually. Or some. I didn't count.
I love the way you just ended that up there, Stanislav. You gave a lot of your profession and your career, and everything. At the very last minute, oh, and by the way, I have a family, and I've got 6 cats, and I've like in 2 seconds, you just threw all that in. Like, oh my God, there's a lot more to find out about you too.
You never know what's most interesting thing for others from your life. So you just be brief.
It's true. And the thing about today, well, before I go on, let me say to everybody here, talking about yourself is probably one of the hardest things to do. I know this for a fact. It puts you on the spot, and you never know if somebody could be bored or excited about your story and what's going to end up on the internet, all that kind of stuff. So I want to thank you all for doing this. I got up, I was thinking about this all last night about how it was such a treat for me to spend time when I went to Richmond with David Klein and with Alvin and a few other people that we have known from the Pipe Club here, just to get them know even a tiny bit better. And there's still so much more that we don't know, and yet I feel like we're all really good friends. So I really wanted to have a meeting where we got better acquainted. So thank you for doing this. And thank you guys. I've been watching the comments over there on Facebook and YouTube, and I've been trying to interact with you guys out there as well. So the one main comment was from Piper said, who was talking about David Klein, and he said, Walla Walla is somewhere between Ting Tang and Bing Bong.
That's true. That's true.
Ting Tang.
Well, Bing Bang, actually, I forget. That's the way the song goes. But it is that time. So I've got to bring us to a close. We're going to do some more of this, I promise you, because now all of a sudden there's a lot more questions than there are answers, as you know. One of the things that I wanted to talk about today, but we're out of time, is for those of you who missed the announcement, we probably will not have a meeting next week because I'm not sure which of the moderator team is still in town. I'll be gone to take care of my my older dog, who's going down next week. It's just the end. So, but when we come back, it'll be nearly time for me to take off again for Chicago. And so the Chicago show is coming up, and I wanted to talk a little bit about that. We're gonna have a table there at the Chicago show where we're gonna do some interviews, and where we'll be broadcasting the Saturday meeting from the table and then bringing you into there. So we'll be trying to do a bunch of stuff, and I'd love to get any ideas, requests, suggestions about who you'd like to see, who you'd like to meet. Maybe so we'll talk about that, not next weekend, but the weekend after.
Perfect.
That makes sense?
Good.
And then I'm going to have to order shirts for everybody who's going to show up in Chicago. Just saying. So we'll talk about that as well. Anyway, for those of you who haven't watched too much of the meetings in the past, this is about the time that I shoo everybody out because I don't want everybody to get in trouble for being gone for more than 2 hours on a Saturday when the family and the honey-do list is waiting and whatnot. So I'm glad to hear that Dr. Fauci is saying that we're in a transitional period. We're out of the pandemic and perhaps in the endemic. I'm not a doctor. I don't even play one on television, but I'm glad to hear that at least somebody thinks so. But I will tell you, I beg you to take care of yourselves. There have been several people in our club who have had to deal with coming down with COVID, and it's not been fun for any of them. And I am glad to know that they all are still here, but you never want to take a chance. So, do whatever you think is the right thing to do. Get the shot, wash your hands, stay in the basement, wear a mask, do whatever, but just take care of yourselves because we love you and I want to see you again. That's all. That's all I got to say. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Zoom Room crew, you're the best people ever.
Thanks, brothers. It was good seeing you all. Nice to hear about all your interests.
Enjoy.
Have a good day. Have a great day.
Absolutely.
Enjoy the stories.
Absolutely.
The superhero origin stories was a really cool idea, DDR.
Well, I learned a lot. And by the way, the blackmail letters will be coming out soon. Just
That's what I was afraid of.
Now I just need everyone's passcodes.
I knew there was an angle.
All right, take it easy, everybody. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Okay.
Have a good week.
Bye-bye.
Adios.
Have a good weekend, all.
Bye.
Yeah.